Okay, this is a reply to MrHerrIQarthur. Yeah, I've just finished. I watched your 3-hour video and I've rewatched a few sections of it that I made notes of to revisit. Depending on how you want to proceed, what I'll do is, in this video I'll deal with the questions you asked me at the beginning, and I'll basically break it into chunks. That's okay. Yeah, so I'll deal with your questions first, then I can't remember now how you structured it, but you had some criticisms of my stuff, and then you gave me a rather extensive list of references and whatnot, and I read a couple of those papers. And I've got something to say about those, but that will have to wait to another video. Yeah, first up, I mean, just as a kind of a preamble, this whole I mean, it's difficult. You know, I appreciate your straightforwardness and honesty. I think you're quite willing to be charitable. That's good, and I hope you think that I'm not being uncharitable, and I'm probably going to ruin it straight away by by saying that I really do think you're wasting your life on this, and I know that's a shitty thing to say, fairly meaningless thing to say, given that, you know, that we're all wasting our lives in one way or another. But the science side of this is I don't know, is not as well known as I think you believe it is. It's the whole human evolutionary biology, this aspect of evolutionary biology and sociology is dominated mostly by sociologists and psychologists, and I mean, there are legitimate proper scientists working on human evolutionary biology, but you know, they tend to be very, very careful people, and like proper scientists should be. And you know, some of the claims that some of these psychologists and things are making are, I'm not saying they're not interesting ideas, or that they shouldn't pursue them, or that they shouldn't pursue them because they're psychologists or sociologists. But it's a bit of a stretch to call it science when not because they're particularly crap at science. A lot of them are, but it's just very, very messy. The human animal is not an ideal subject for studying evolution, biology, or any kind of biology, behaviour, or anything, because there are just so many complicating factors that are much simpler. Well, the complicating factors that are much reduced in animal populations, or a lot of animal populations, and of course not least the ethical restrictions that are in place on human beings, and that we don't have for bigoted reasons on animals. But it means that there is stuff that you just can't do human beings, and not expect it, or at least not do and expect not to be lynched. Yeah, quite a lot of speculative ideas and things, so which is okay, but it's very hard to it's much harder to think of ideas, of ways of testing those ideas, and testing those ideas in ways that the ideas make predictions that distinguish them from other ideas. Because the same pattern can be explained by different processes, and we need to find ways to distinguish those processes, and that's just so much more difficult in human beings. And so for that reason alone, many areas of evolutionary biology can give humans wide berth, because they're interested in the science, the ideas, the processes behind the biological mechanisms, and not particularly interested that it's going to apply to human beings. Whereas, as you can imagine, the sociologists, psychologists, that's the only thing they're interested in. Principally they're interested in human beings, and they want to be the guy who works it all out, and that's what the public are interested in as well. So you've got similar problems in medicine. So quite a lot of medical science is quite sort of dodgy and for the same reason, just difficult working, difficult subjects to work on. Lots of pesky ethical considerations that get in the way. Right, so anyway, I've got your questions in front of me. Now, they're kind of odd, I thought, and the way they're worded kind of presupposes, I think, that I am on the other end of some kind of spectrum. You know, that if you're at the you want segregation, that I'm somehow carrying a flag for multiculturalism, and I don't see myself like that, and it's kind of odd, you know, when somebody puts forward ideas about something that is kind of, I suppose, well, very often people imagine the people disagreeing with them being at the other end of the spectrum. I guess I have this one. I would probably put myself in the I don't really care category, or I don't think it should matter category, or I can see that it's not that I don't see that it doesn't matter to other people, or that it does matter in that they're affected by it mattering to other people. And I would see the whole thing as distinct from any discussion on, you know, there's lots of things that get conflated. So, you know, I personally would see immigration and what others might call as race relations as separate issues, although obviously they're linked, but I think it's unfortunate that they're not delineated. When discussing this, and it seems to be impossible for some people to delineate them. So people will assume that if you're a racist and you're against immigration, well, I guess that's a fairly safe assumption, I imagine, or that if you've got a problem, some problem with immigration, that you're going to be a racist. But it's a difficult subject to talk about. Right, so your first question, so anyway, so your question's a bit strange, I think, because of that, I think, presupposition that I'm some kind of card-carrying multiculturalist. And so they're kind of like, so unfortunately I don't think my answers to your questions are going to mean very much, because I think you already know the answers to most of them. So your first one is, are human individuals born with the exact same urges, interests or traits? Now, I suppose by born, all human individuals born, you mean that you're talking about traits. So if we ignore any traits that you might pick up in the womb. So are human individuals born with the exact same urges, interests or traits? Well, I guess urges and interests are traits. They're all, everything are traits, so that's an obvious no, isn't it? Because we know that can't be true, and so I think that's a bit of a rhetorical question. Do you believe all preferences are malleable for all people? Now, this word preferences, this kind of stuck with me before. You used this word preferences, and I'm not quite, I wasn't sure what you meant by it, and then I read one of the papers I did read, that I'll talk about in another video if you want to proceed, was the baby paper on the thing, and this word preferences came up in that paper quite a lot, and I was thinking, well, what do they mean, preference? And it seemed to me that in the context, what they really meant was discriminate, and which to me is a perfectly good word, and it's perfectly adequate to describe it, but because obviously they're thinking, ooh, discriminate, people associate that with racial discrimination, they've decided to drop that word and they needed a new word, and so they've gone for this preference thing, which I don't know, I don't like it. I mean, I can forgive you for using it if that's what psychologists are using, but I don't know, to discriminate between two things doesn't necessarily mean you prefer one over the other. Sorry, do you believe all preferences are malleable for all people? Are all preferences malleable? Yeah, I don't really... I mean, again, you know, the question kind of forces one to say no, because, you know, I don't know what all the preferences are, so how can I know if they're all malleable, and how can I know if they're malleable for all people? It's an impossible question to answer yes to, or I don't know, you know, I don't know. Can they be made to go away? Well, again, it's another one where, you know, if it's subject to all preferences are malleable, but all people, can they be made to go away? You know, it's a, you know, if it's a question that's meant to, that I'm meant to answer, then, you know, I'd appreciate a much more, you know, a more straightforward type of question. So, do you believe racial preference is malleable? Well, it depends what you mean by, well, I guess, again, it depends what you mean by preference. Do you mean one's preferred sexual partner, or who you give your last biscuit to, or, if you mean, or I mean, do you believe it's possible not to be behaviourally racist? Then yes, this is possible to do that, and you know that's possible. So I don't know what you're talking about. Could an individual be born with a preference for the in-group? So it carries on, right? So could an individual be born with a preference for their in-group? I mean, are you saying, is it, you know, without any information, is it possible? You know, is it a possibility that we have a genetic predisposition? That there is a genetic predisposition? Well, of course, it's a possibility. And whether it's probable or not, you know, don't know. So could an individual be born with a preference for their in-group and not act on it? Well, you answered that yourself. You said exactly the same yourself. You said that you do have a preference for your in-group and you don't act on it. So you don't, and not be unhappy. So yeah. So the fourth thing is, could an individual be born with a preference for their in-group, not act on it, and not be unhappy? Yeah. Well, it's possible. And at the end of it, what evidence would you need to change your mind? Well, you've got an idea that I've got a mind to change. I guess I would say that my position would be is that that a lot of this stuff is unknown, not necessarily unknowable, but is but certainly is not. Well, I mean, you know, nothing in science is certain, right? But my position really would be is that this is all very tricky stuff, and I don't think this sort of speculation about extending, like Hamilton's kin selection, extending it from identity by descent to identity by similarity, for instance. You know, you can show that the mathematics is the thing. Another thing is that the psychologist, the Russian guy, you know, they present this as if this is some kind of new insight, but you know, Hamilton was well aware of this. You know, Hamilton wasn't the thicko. he understood that it could be extended like that. It's more of a question of, and that it would make mathematical sense, if two organisms could recognise, could estimate their genetic similarity between each other, that would be advantageous to any gene that contributed to that recognition. It's just whether it's biologically plausible. And the fact that somebody can come up with a good idea or a good model in science in general, but in evolutionary biology specifically, it doesn't mean it's true. You still have to do the work and find the data for it. And if all they're doing is looking at human populations for this data, then it's not surprising that it hasn't been taken very seriously. If this is indeed an effect, there must be plenty of animal models that this could be tested on, and test the generality of the idea rather than applying it straight to human beings. So yeah, I don't know if that gives you any better idea about where I'm coming from. I thought your questions were kind of silly and leading, and the idea was to sort of get me to hold a position or something. I don't know. But I don't know. I can't see how there could be these questions would be helpful. The answers to these questions would be helpful to you. On a science level, I can just give you a summary of what I think. On a science level, I don't think there's much to this stuff. It's not, nothing that we can really kind of stamp mystery solved or anything on, and as I've said before, then that whichever way it goes, I don't think it really has much bearing on how we deal with it ethically. It should be pretty irrelevant. I think both the left and the right make the mistake of claiming that the science tells us to act one way or the other. It doesn't tell us to do anything. It just is what it is, and we're on our own when it comes to the ethics. If like the left, maybe that they want to believe that we're all the same, and people on the right want to make the most of the differences. to me, that's just it's what I meant about making a religion out of science. It's not. The science doesn't tell us. It's just telling us how it is. It's not telling us what we ought to do. So I'll leave it there, and you can let me know how you want to proceed. Because this is, it's obviously time consuming for you, but it's also time consuming for me. So if you'd rather me go away, I'm quite happy with that. But I'm at the moment quite happy to continue, if you are. So anyway.